aircrafts, the commercial transport aircrafts or the military aircrafts. So these are fixed wing aircrafts, but um, not unlike these, ornithopters actually have flapping wings, and they might or might not have pitching capabilities depending on how complex you want the wing to be. The main difference which is between the ornithopters and helicopters or the planes is basically their capability of having flapping wings, and these have either fixed wing lifting surfaces or uh, rotating wing, basically in case of helicopters, and in case of aeroplanes there are rotating propelling devices, right? So basically, why did ornithopters first come? uh, I can't change the screen. Oh, okay, got it. Yeah. So yeah, so why did ornithopters first come into existence? So man has always wanted to fly like the birds. So the most obvious answer to such a flight, basically, if we want to just soar in the sky, was just looking at our role models, which are the birds or even the bats or insects as well, and mimic their flapping motion. So as you can see Tom doing here, right? So that is why the flapping wing concept came into existence in the first place. So flapping wing concept was here even before, like as you would expect, even before the Wright brothers did their fixed wing aircraft design, because this was the first thing which would come to anybody's mind as an obvious answer to wanting a flight type of ability. So going ahead, you can also see how man has always wanted to have flapping. Just, I think there's a problem with the slideshow. I can't maneuver with between the slides. I can't change the slides. Should I? Oh, all right, okay. So can you see the new slide here, or is the previous one still visible?
It is visible. The new one is visible.
All right, okay. So even in the mythology and spiritual ideas, you will see mentions of ornithopters. So for example, many of you might know in Ramayana, there's a description of the Pushpak Viman, which was Ravan's vehicle. Similarly, in Greek mythology, there was this legend of Daedalus and Icarus, who self-made some artificial wings to escape some captivity in an island. Another thing is the ancient Assyrians, they also imagine their god in a winged chariot, right? So moving on, basically, yeah. So this is the first question we would like to answer. So can we fly the way Tom did? So can we just have a artificial wing, strap it on our arms, and then flap them and just jump off the cliff? Do you think that is possible? Actually, if we look at the mathematics or the aerodynamics and things like that, it actually isn't achievable given the current state of the technological capabilities we have. There are some reasons which we might look at why this is not possible. So one, human body is too heavy to be able to fly like the birds. So, but if you think about it, we have had past instances where we have known that there were very big creatures like the dinosaurs or the pterosaurs who were able to fly, and they had flapping wings and they were able to fly. So this doesn't defy the fact that we can have flapping wings and then we can just soar into the sky. Other reason which people give is that the human arms do not have enough power to generate a flapping flight. Yeah, but we have always seen that there are very small insects or small creatures which obviously won't have as much power as we do, right? And still they are able to fly. The main problem here is that the power by weight ratio in case of humans is around 3 watts per kg, and in birds the ratio is around 20 watts per kg, right? So that's the difference here, birds or the other natural flyers, so to say. Yeah. So when we balance out the power we can generate, though we can generate quite a considerable amount of power, our weight does balance it out, and then the lift produced is not enough to make us capable to fly that way. Yeah. There is one hypothesis, actually not a hypothesis, theoretically it is possible that our legs are strong enough to generate that kind of flapping capability and make us fly the way we want to. But that can happen only if we have a very large wingspan, for example, say like 50, 60 feet kind of wingspan. And then what would happen is when we try to increase the wingspan to such a big amount, then the other issues come in, like the structural issues of the material of the wing. So when we make very long wings, you can imagine it like a cantilever, yeah, fixed at one end. And if you try to make it as long as possible, there is a flexibility aspect starting to come in, right? So we don't want that to come in, because then if we actuate the root, the tip would not have the motion we expect it to have because of the flexibility coming in, right? So, and now if we want to strengthen the wings, then we add some, more material or more heavier material that would make the wing heavier. And again, the wing now has to balance out or basically generate lift corresponding to not only the human body as well as the wing weight as well. So basically, the main thing over here is that we have to design wings which are long, like big wingspan, as well as light. So that kind of materials are not, like, we don't have the technology to create such materials, and that is why no one has succeeded in making flapping, like just flappers which can be strapped on when can fly in the sky. Maybe in future that would be possible, but now that we rule out this possibility right now, what do we do? Like, what do we do to, be able to fly in the sky? So the next step from here was, one of them was to think of, converting a different kind. For example, our legs can, easily make a bicycle kind of paddling motion happen, right? So what if we couple that paddling with the flapping of wings, make some mechanism to do that, and then we can have a human powered ornithopter, right? That was one concept which people started to think on. Other was, maybe we can use some power, like engine device or something, to generate the power, because humans are incapable of doing that much, yeah. So maybe we can use some external power source to make the device fly. The third thing, which was a very novel concept at that time, was maybe we can think of decoupling the thrust and the lift forces. So, in case of flapping flight or in case of all the natural flyers, what happens is the main contributor to generating the lift as well as the thrust forces is the flapping motion of the wings. Yes, there is the pitching and morphing of the wings, but these are basically, morphing is basically you try to change the surface area of the wing, according to increase the efficiency and things like that, yeah. But the main thing is the flapping was responsible for generating both lift and thrust. So a novel concept came in that we may just use some lifting surfaces to generate the lift, and then we have some propelling capabilities to generate the thrust. And that was the third part, the third ideology basically, which the modern aircraft design is based, where we have a where we have a um, fixed wing structure and a propeller to generate the thrust. Yeah. But the other two parts were still ornithopter designs. They were still based on flapping flights and all. Right. So moving ahead. Uh, so basically, this is just some examples of early designs of ornithopters. So as we would know that Leonardo da Vinci, the great scientist, architect, and designer, artist, whatever, yeah, he was very actively involved in ornithopter design, thinking and all. Basically, he wasn't able to make an ornithopter model, but he had a lot of drawings in place and had imagined a lot of things. And another example is from 1902, EP Frost's ornithopter. If you can see in the picture, it just looks like a, big bird type of thing. But the thing here was, he had tried to mimic a crow, and he had tried to scale it up. So if you see the crow, actually in the natural, like the way it is quite small, and he had tried to use the concept from its wings to make a larger model, just scaling it up. And he had tried to use this for a manned ornithopter flight. He wasn't successful of flying this, but yeah, he was able to just generate enough lift to just lift off his feet off the ground and have a jumping type of thing. He would just land in some distance, but yeah, he wasn't able to achieve a good sustained flight here. Yeah. So we move on to this. Yeah. Now, the other concept here was, when we tried to design an ornithopter which mimics the flapping motion, there were a lot of role models ahead of us, right? There are birds, insects, and bats, and all of them have a different type of flying mechanism, so to say, and different, uses or we would say uses capabilities. Yeah. So basically the insect wing, if you see, or if you have seen closely, yeah, so you'll see that it's like a single membrane kind of thing. Yeah, it doesn't have a morphing or a shape change or a flexibility in it which helps it change the shape of the wing during flight. It's more like a just a reciprocating plane surface. Yeah. Unlike those, the bird wing has a very different kind of structure. It has a arm, like, yeah, so one thing is that birds and bats are vertebrates. Yeah, so they have a, these are kind of a little similar to our hands and things like that. So bird wing, if you see, it has an arm, it has a shoulder joint, it has an elbow joint, and going ahead it has feathers all over the wing. Yes, so the feathers are mainly responsible to help with the morphing capabilities. Yes, the flapping motion comes from the actuation of the shoulder and the elbow joint. Yes, and the bat wing is quite different from both of these. Bat wing is very similar. If you see the diagram, the structure is very similar to a human hand. The fingers, the three, the four, five yellow kind of links you see, those are basically fingers if you compare it with our hands. The only difference here is that the length between the wrist and the elbow is much lesser than the finger lengths. So the relative lengths are very different in case of bats and in humans. And the bat has a stretched thin elastic membrane all over the, like, stretched in between these bones of it, and that membrane is the main lifting surface basically for the wing. So whenever it wants to flap, it, whenever it goes for a downstroke, it opens it up. When it goes for an upstroke, it folds it inwards. So that kind of capability is with the bat. And in case of birds, such a morphing capability is gotten by making the feathers go up and down, overlap and extend, things like that. So one thing you would notice maybe that the bird wing capabilities of having the feathers overlap and all led to the flaps in the modern aircraft. So the flap also is used to, change the surface area, and that is a concept which maybe like which has come in from the bird wing. So another interesting thing here would be like, now how do you decide whether, if you want to construct an ornithopter, which which of these do you choose? Like, which of these models do you go with? Yeah. So one should notice that if I try to make a very big bird, like for example, if I try to imagine an eagle or a condor with a insect-like wing, so it's a complete single plane wing, right? So that would be like extremely, difficult or maybe impossible to, so to say, because again the thing comes in that when you have a completely straight, completely planar kind of wing like the insects, you will have to have a very high flapping frequency to lift off such a big animal like an eagle body. Yes, and then you will also have to have larger wings to generate that, like the lifting surface area should be higher so as to generate that kind of lift. Now, if you have large wings without the supporting bones, which are there in birds and bats, but not in insects, then again, the thing which we had talked about earlier, the flexibility aspect of the material comes in. So that way, it would not be suitable to have a very big bird with an insect-like wing, right? So that is where once you want to build an ornithopter, taking an inspiration from a existing natural flyer comes in. It depends what kind of, now you will have similar sized birds and bats. Now how do you decide which one do you choose the model with? Yeah, so now it depends on the kind of requirements you have, right? Bat wing is known, a bat is known to have a very high turning rate kind of flight, a very agile flight. It can change its direction of motion very quickly. And also bat has a more um, a nice hovering capability as well. So birds in the other hand have a very nice perching kind of, it can perch anywhere, go and perch. Bat, you must have seen, it's also having a, it will go and hang upside down. So it depends on what kind of properties you want your robot, or you want your machine or ornithopter to have, to choose these. Now another interesting question which one can get here is, yeah, so now we have seen these kind of flyers, natural flyers, and the things which can get inspired from them. Yes. Now you can also think about a very big bird, for example, a condor. Yeah. You'll see these kind of birds would generally be gliding all the way. Yeah. They only flap whenever they want to take off, or during landing when they want to land. Those are the places where the flapping motion occurs, or at the other time it's more of a gliding motion. And that is exactly how aeroplanes came into existence. Basically aeroplanes are just gliders, big gliders. Yes. But now if you think about it, how do you think helicopters came into existence? Now what kind of biological equivalent do you see in the nature of a helicopter like flying mechanism? So actually there are some specific seeds, maple seeds, which are also called the helicopter seeds. And these have some leaves which, while they have some air pollination capabilities, so when they fly with the air, the wings rotate like a helicopter rotor, and that is why they are called the helicopter seeds as well. So everything at the end is inspired or related to biology, which is very interesting. Now going ahead, yeah. Now we come to the question of when we had the three choices to make initially, when we knew that the flaps won't work, just attaching flaps to human body won't work. Then we were able to, segregate into three choices. And then we went ahead with the separation of lift and thrust capabilities. And we went ahead making some fixed wing aircrafts. Now, why do we still care about flapping flight? There are different reasons. One is very, like, this quote is very famous. Basically humans fly commercially or recreationally, but animals are professional flyers basically. So we have, as humans, we have always exalted nature, and we believe that the nature's creation are the most efficient ones. So after, like, because of this, people did study the aerodynamics of flapping flight, and they came to a conclusion that a flapping wing can give you a better propulsive efficiency than a propeller. So there are different reasons. There are aerodynamic reasons and capabilities involved behind this, and why this happens. A few of them I have listed down, but we won't go into details of why exactly, like the lift force generation and all, the turbulence and the vortex and all, because that is itself a very vast topic, and I actually am studying in that right now as well. So yeah, flapping wings potentially offer improved efficiency, better maneuverability, and they have reduced noise compared with the rotary driven airplanes and helicopters. Also, the airfoil is highly unsteady and turbulent, and the lift which is produced, the airflow basically is very turbulent, and the lift which is produced is more compared to the fixed wing flight. In addition to this, the speciality with birds is they are capable of morphing the wing. So they can change the surface area. Nowadays, the flights, obviously, the fixed wing aircrafts have some flaps and things like that, leading edge devices, trailing edge devices, things like that, which are able to change the surface area of the wing. But that is a very limited extent. If you closely observe a bird wing or a bat wing, you'll see how the extent to which the birds and the bats can, morph their wing, change the shapes of the wing, change the camber of the wing. And this is an added advantage. And pitching, obviously, they can vary the angle of attack of the wing while upstroke and downstroke. This gives an increased efficiency of flight. So, yeah. Oops. Okay. So these are two of the most successful manned ornithopter flights. So one of them is the powered manned ornithopter, which is from 1942. A German engineer named Adalbert, he built this one, and it flew for 15 minutes, which was a great achievement at that point. And basically here it is powered using an external source, an engine, not a human powered, but it is a manned ornithopter, and it is capable of flapping its wings. So another one is a very recent one, and actually it's today is its anniversary, so to say. It was actually flown first time on 2nd August 2010. So it's called the Snowbird. It was developed by university, like student and professors from University of Toronto, and it is the up-to-date most successful human-powered ornithopter. So human-powered in the sense, basically the guy sitting inside, he pedals on the whatever, like basically the pedaling is coupled with the flapping, and the pedaling action generates the flapping UAVs were much easier built compared to manned flights because they had to care less. Like the lift to be generated wasn't as much as we wanted in a manned flight. So Festo is one of the companies who have worked in this, and they have successfully built very interesting robots. You can maybe Google it and look at these. There is also a TED talk. If you are interested, you can see that as well. So Festo is an automation company. They have built a smart bird, which was inspired by a seagull, and they have also built a bionic flying fox, which was inspired by a bat. So they also have videos of these in motion as well, flying. So you will see how beautifully they resemble the actual creatures, though it's not exactly mimicking. For example, in case of the flying fox, the bats have a very flexible membrane, and the flapping basically, folding mechanism is very beautiful in case of bats because the membrane can stretch, like it is extremely elastic, so it can stretch to a great extent, which is not as much in this case. But yeah, this was able to get a very agile flight properties as well, this bionic flying fox. So yeah, all right. So some of the applications of such UAVs, or so to say ornithopters in general, some of them I listed down. Maybe you can share some of them towards the end of the session, if you think of some. So basically, one thing would be, building highly maneuverable UAVs. That would be a new generation of flying machines that can make their way through very difficult paths, terrains, as easily as birds or bats can. Also, a very important application of insect like ornithopters have come into making MAVs. MAVs are micro aerial vehicles, which are very small, and these are also used in making drones. For example, they could fly to spy on the enemies, without the enemies realizing that they are under surveillance. For example, if you guys must have watched the movie Uri, there was one ornithopter bird, multiple ornithopters uh, employed there, so as to spy on the enemy territory and plan our actions accordingly. So these have military applications. And other than that, search and rescue missions in forests and all, where the normal helicopters can't reach, for example, things like that. So that way, also drones are also an option. Drone, I mean quadcopters, etc., are an option, but these are much more efficient than quadcopters, even in the hovering capabilities, or all the like flying capabilities and everything. So another application could be a flying machine which looks and behaves very much like birds, can help study birds closely. So what happens is, when you try to study a biological creature, you would like it to be in its natural habitat, and you would not want a foreign a camera or something disturbing it, and then it reacting to the foreign substance or whatever differently. So if you construct a flying machine which looks very similar to the bird itself, it could help us study the bird closely without disturbing their natural habitat. Similar is for bats and insects and all these organisms. So, the next application is obviously something the humankind wants. So the flapping flight is highly efficient. So if we are able to achieve manned flight with a machine which uses a wing having the capabilities of flapping and morphing like the birds do, it would actually be a breakthrough in the aviation industry that, yes, everybody is welcome to do. It's very interesting and very, it would be a record breaking stuff, because now you saw that the best generated till now was of a 19.3 seconds flight. So if somebody is able to make a manned ornithopter which can sustain its flight as well. So it was a manpower, so that is also there. You can have a engine powered and things like that. Yeah. So ornithopters, the last one is, yes, ornithopters are being used to keep birds away from airport runways to ensure safety and avoid accidents. That's there. So yeah, moving ahead. Okay, yeah. So yeah, this was the project we did in our second year. So we had a team of 6, and we were building a ornithopter, which was inspired by the bird condor. We had named it drag owl for some reasons I'll discuss later. Yeah, but yeah, the design and everything was inspired, like the design, weight, and everything. We had taken the bird condor because it did match our weight requirements, etc., and the span we were looking at. So yeah, the design. So the wingspan of the ornithopter we designed was 2.8 meters, and the weight, the net total weight was around 9 kgs. The wing we had was a double flapping wing. A double flapping wing means basically, for example, in insects, it's a single flapping wing. The whole wing flaps together. In case of birds, you'll see that, there is, because there is an elbow joint involved as well. So it has a kind of a two-part motion. There is a motion, there is an out of phase, like it's not in the same phase. The part which is from the part of the wing which is from the shoulder to the elbow, and the one which is from the elbow to the wrist, they are, they are out of phase with each other and flapping individually. So we'll see a video so you can understand it better. It's a double flapping wing, and the wing is capable of both flapping and pitching. Pitching in the sense changing, basically twisting of the wing, right? So this basically we achieved it using some kind of servo actuation. So what we did was we basically we actuated the wing it, it's from the lab we were working in. So this one is basically, oops, this one did play. All right. Okay. So this is the one where only one part of the wing was attached. This is a single flapping wing, right? So you can see it, and then we did attach the complete assembly. So here is the completely assembled. Yeah. So if you can see, it is a double flapping. Now you understand, I guess, what double flapping I meant by double flapping. So that is how we had built it. Now, actually, I'll tell you why we named it drag owl. So basically, we hadn't designed a structure to cover this up, right? This was just an internal mechanism open, and we were planning on putting a structure on it and all. But right now, it was full of interference drag, to say. Yeah. So the drag comes from there. And if you look at the design closely, the CAD model and all, it looked like an owl. So it looked like an owl, its face and all. That is why it was just named drag owl. Something we came up with. So yeah, that's the video of the model we made. I guess that should be it probably. Just a minute, let me see. Yeah, I think that's it. I hope I got you all excited about ornithopters as much as I am. So thanks a lot. I am open to any questions anybody has. Yeah.
It was a very wonderful session. We got a lot of knowledge about ornithopters. So now we can open up discussions and anything anyone wants to ask from our speaker. Thank you, Radha.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead if anybody has any questions.
Hello.
Yes. Yeah. Smith, go
Uh,
ahead.
in in which software you tested all these things? It will fly how much speed or everything?
Right. Actually, this was based on some of the manual calculations and some simulations in MATLAB. So this was basically done by the aerodynamics team, sub team of our, project group. We had 6 people. Two of us were working in the mechanical subgroup. There was one who was working with the electrical parts of it, electrical and controls part, and the other three were working on the aerodynamics aspect of it. So as much as I know, they did some rough calculations of the basically to get the airfoil design, which airfoil we wanted to choose according to what kind of flight we wanted, like what exactly those things, as to how much sustained, like what type of flight we wanted, how much of sustaining time and things like that. All of these simulations and these rough calculations were done by these people.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Right.
Radha, actually, I had one question. Now, I wanted to ask what are the challenges faced in making a manned ornithopter? Like, why the flight time is so less, like just 19 seconds? What are the, why we are not so successful in making a manned ornithopter?
Right. Actually, that's because of the requirement of the power. So, as I will just open the slide with the picture of the ornithopter, which was the most successful manned ornithopter. Just a minute. Yeah. Where did it go now? Yep. So you see, this ornithopter, basically you see the size of the wing. Yeah. And the guy sitting inside has to work on the pedals and flap those. Basically, the pedals are responsible for flapping these wings, right? So it's like it requires a lot of power. Even if you place an Olympic uh, athlete, so to say, inside, he is going to have some limited power generation from his body coming in, right? And because you have to flap so large wings, it becomes a tremendous effort. And to sustain that kind of power continuously becomes a big challenge, so to say. That is why people started looking at some external power source instead of making humans work on it. So that's the thing.
So can we fit a motor
What?
in place of, can we fit motor power in place of human legs?
Yes. So motor is an actuation device. You'll have to power it using something, right? So yes,
Right,
exactly. So motors. So in this case, for example, this powered ornithopter case, there was a motor which was working here, and uh, the motor was powered using an engine, which was a 6 horsepower engine, things like that. Yeah. So just the
correct.
problem is when you add some things like that, the weight also goes on increasing. So for example, in our project, we also had a powered flight. So the motor was the most significant contributor to the weight of the ornithopter. Because you want some such large torques, you have to have a very big or a heavy, strong motor, so to say. Yeah, so that comes in again at the cost of having a heavy weighted motor, right? So that again adds on to the lift which you need to generate using your wings.
Right.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes,
Hello.
Prashant, go ahead. Yeah.
I just wanted to ask, did your final model flight, or was it just
No.
a
Yeah, I'll tell.
demonstrator?
It was a demonstrator. Actually, we were planning on getting it done, like the body created, covering body, and the plan was to set it up on a car. We had also made the testing mechanism on which it was supposed to be mounted, and it wasn't planned on flying. It was supposed to be tested on a car. So what we were planning to do was set it up, like put it on a car with a carrier kind of thing made, and then put on load cells on the carrier assembly, so as to measure the lift and the drag and the other forces, and to get an idea whether this model would be capable of flight, right? So that was the plan. We weren't planning on, throwing it from somewhere to make it fly or something. This was the preliminary testing which we had planned, but that was also not possible because this was a short-term project. And then this was basically for 2 months. And then we all, started with our coursework and this was left behind. But we would have liked to do that. Yes. But yeah, that's it.
Okay, was it your project related to your club or department?
It was a SERP project. It was from the SERP is basically summer undergraduate research project, and it was offered by the Professor Arindrajit Chaudhary, and he is from mechanical department. And yes, we were working under him. It wasn't a club or something. He also is a FACAD for another club in IIT Bombay, which is Exofly. But this activity wasn't a part of that club. This was separate. This was a project under a professor, basically.
Okay, okay. Sorry, I didn't know that because I'm outside student. I'm not from IIT Bombay, so didn't know that.
Oh, all right. Okay.
Huh.
Yeah. Actually, in this project, in our team, there were 6 people. Out of them, 4 of us were from IIT Bombay. 2 were interns from other college. So, yeah.
Oh, nice to hear about that. Nice to hear. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yes, Rahul. Yeah.
Yes. How much leap force generated by this wing?
Our wing.
This ornithopter wings. How much leap force generated?
Yes, that's what I'm saying. We weren't able to do the testing of it. So that is why we didn't get results as to, we just were, the end result of our complete project was getting the model ready, getting it manufactured, assembled, and getting the mechanism to work. And the plan was that we were planning on continuing it, or else sir was planning on making other people work ahead of what we had, where we had left the project. So we didn't really, do the experiments to get the lift values, what the lift values generated and all were.
Okay. And any vortex generation by this wing? Did you notice or calculate?
Oh no, that actually I would probably just ask my friends from aerospace part of it and maybe let you know. But this we didn't, experiment on the wing. These were some theoretical experiments they had done. Experiments, or maybe you'll call it simulation better. Yeah. So I can set you in a contact with them because I wasn't really involved in the aerospace, the aerodynamic design of it. So maybe they can guide you better on this.
Okay. I have a last question in my side.
Yeah, go ahead.
Using this ornithopter wing, is it possible to barrel roll or barrel rudder or change the direction simultaneously?
To what?
Barrel roll. It means the 360-degree
Uh-huh.
rotation of this
Right.
direction.
So yes, I get your point. So in principle, it should be. So basically, as you see, the natural flyers are capable of this, especially the bats, right? The bats are at least very capable of such maneuvers and all, right?
Yes,
In
that's why
principle,
you first you
yeah,
have mentioned that, and in ornithopter it
yes.
follows the natural rules or natural like birds. So that's why I
Right.
asking.
Yeah,
Okay.
exactly. But this model, this was just supposed to be a forward flight. Like the modeling and the thinking behind it was just to make it, fly in a straight line. We weren't, thinking of making it do some maneuvers because it itself was a big challenge to make it fly in first place, right? We weren't even planning on making it fly. We were just planning on making some tests in place so that we can get some idea as to what else is required to make it fly, or if this model is ready to, just set it up, just put the body in, cover it up and make it fly. So that was the main goal of our project. So we didn't really look into maneuvers or, turns and all. So actually right now I am working on something which would be relevant. Basically I am looking at a bat wing design, bat like biomimetic wing design. So there I am looking into the maneuverability aspects of it, so the turn rates and trying to, change directions quickly, agility and all. So it's more of a modeling problem, so a dynamic modeling problem. So yeah, that is right. That is what I'm doing right now. But as a part of this project, this wasn't a part of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
What is the role of mechanical division in your project? Actually, what
What is
they
the
do
role of?
in a mechanical department in your project?
Right. Okay. Okay. So for our part, basically, I'll tell you a little of the background. Basically, what happened was we had this kind of project. The professor who had offered this project has been conducting this over summers for some time now. So he had already had two teams work on it before us, and they had left it at some point, and we had to pick it up from there. So they had a basic design ready, so a mechanical basic design, right, and some aerodynamic calculations. So we had to take that design, the CAD design. They hadn't made any, hardware or a manufacture. They didn't get anything manufactured or something. They had a CAD model in their mind which they had made, and we took the model from there, made it into some, like, modified it according to our requirements and our design ideas and all. And basically in the initial phases it was just working on the CAD model. Then it was more of, getting the flapping in action, then getting the pitching motion. Yeah, they hadn't looked into pitching at all. So we thought of how we could pitch the wing. So then we thought of the actuation which we could do, like attaching a servo. That was actually something we came up with. It was just ideated, and then basically we got that mechanism into action and got the assembly done, got things manufactured, which took up a lot of time. Though we didn't have to do it, we had to get it done from people outside Insti, and then got it manufactured, assembled, and put together, and get the mechanism working. That was the main aspect of the mechanical design part of it.
Right.
Hello. What was the size and everything of your wing?
Yeah, so the wing was, it was, the total span was 2.8 meters. So one wing was around 1.4 meters.
Okay. What was the overall size of your whole project? Ornithopter.
Right. Just, I don't remember this dimension, like the into the plane dimension and the this thing. I might have the data somewhere. Yeah, I'll share it with you if you wish to know. Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Does anyone have any other questions? So I guess it was a very interactive session. Our audience was also great. They asked a lot of questions. Our speaker enriched us with a lot of knowledge. We all got to know a lot. So I want to inform that due to logistic constraints, we are not launching a project on Ornithopter, but stay tuned because in the next talk, that is on transitioning VTOL, we will be launching a project for IIT Bombay students. And in case of any further questions, we can you can post on our mail ID. And this was a great initiative by Modeling Club and CDS SRG. So thank you everyone.
Thank you. So we can stop sharing and log out, right?